Why does your name matter? Well, as a kid, has your name been made fun of in school? Or perhaps even as an adult? My name is Tony Lau and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'll go through some of the way we as Feng Shui profession determine the luck and the fortune of your name. Personally, I would never recommend people change the name just to improve their luck. It's just not that practical. Unless you're a newborn without any name, then you're just starting fresh on the right path. So the question I received is more how to determine the elements for the non-Chinese name. But to do that, you gotta understand how the Chinese use different methods to calculate the elements of luck or fortune for the name. So there's a lot of different ways out there that we use to calculate name. Not every method is accurate, but I'll just go through some of the more popularized way. Like one way is to calculate the element by counting strokes. Not just any strokes, 10 strokes, okay? So let's use my Chinese name as an example. Okay, so this is my Chinese name. So this is one method called forms we use to calculate the meaning of names by many Feng Shui professions. Okay, so first we have heaven form, which is calculated by counting stroke of your last name. That is the first word of my Chinese name. It's a little different than English last name, which is at the end of it. The word Lao has 15 stroke, which means my heaven form is 15. Now this form doesn't affect individual. The only thing that does is provide some insight to your ancestor, like how your past ancestor had done in terms of luck. So obviously the word Lao came from the Han Dynasty, where the royal family more primarily had the Lao last name. And it's also one of the most popular Chinese names in China. So then we just go and calculate the strokes for the other two words. Okay, so from here, we can calculate the second form. It's called the human form, which is calculated by adding the stroke from my last name to my first name. So a little different than English. The reason I say first name is so you can understand. First name is just the middle word of a Chinese name. A little different than English. And then the last word is the middle name. So historically, this had always been translated as the man form. A client once told me it's sexist during the recent year, so I changed the translation to human form instead. This form is used to determine the overall luck of your life. It can also be used as a representation of your core personality, strength, and capability. Then we have Earth form, which is calculated by adding the stroke from your first name and middle name. It can be a bit confusing when I say that, since the English version of middle name is in the middle, and the Chinese middle name is actually at the end. Just keep that in mind when you try to calculate your own name. Now the Earth form is used to determine the luck of your early part of life, primarily before age 36. And it can also be used to determine relationship with the opposite sex. Okay, so finally we have the other form, which is determined by adding the stroke from your last name with your middle name, which is the last character in the Chinese name. So this form tells you the secondary luck cycle, not as important as your core luck. This one primarily deals with the relationship with your family and friends. And then finally, we have the overall form. This is the final form. Think of it as your final boss in a video game. This is the combination of all the strokes in your name. We generally use the overall form to determine the later part of your life, primarily the lucks that happen after age 36. Now, some people only have 2 characters in the name. My father, being one of them, has only 2 characters in his name. Now, that just means his forms are more simplified. As you can see, he'll still have a human form, which tells him the overall luck. But it doesn't mean like he can't drill down into the different phases of life based on his name. So what do you do after you get all these numbers? Do you just think about the number? Is it higher the better and lower the better? We have to go to a textbook for interpretation. namely the 81 stroke smart method. So that's the name of the book that we use. Put it up on the screen so you can see what I'm referencing. I try to search for an English version, but I don't find anything. Mostly it's in Chinese, so we have to translate it somehow. Maybe I can find time to translate the text sometime. So why 81? If you notice in Feng Shui, we divide many things into 9 sectors. There's an old Chinese proverb regarding the definition of life. I'll just go through the loosely translated English version. 1 creates 2, 2 creates 3, 3 creates a gate to million life. 3 and 3 multiplies to 9. 9 and 9 equals to 81. 81 is the end of life. Thus, 81 is the one to start all over again. Now, for time's sake, I'm not going to go into detail of every single one of the 81 strokes. Plus, it's not entirely accurate. Just because you change a name, say to Jeff Bezos, doesn't mean automatically makes you a billionaire. No, not really. You might get a divorce though. So what if you have 2 words in your last name? I know many people in Japan does. Clans and such, and even like Chinese, there's still some Chinese folk with more than 1 word in the last name. If you have more than 1 word, then just add up the stroke from the 2 word. For example, comedian movie star Jimmy O Yang. I mentioned him because he's currently on a show on Netflix right now, and I met him in person when he visited Salt Lake City. He's a picture to prove it. So let's take a look at his form real quick. So he mentioned he has this Chinese name many times on his shows. As you can see, he has 2 words in his last name. A little bit uncommon when you compare the overall population of China. Like, not many people have 2 words in the last name. Some has 3. So what do you do in this case? Okay, you can see like we got 15 on the first word and 12 on the second word. Find the heaven form, we just add up the 2 words, which we get 27 in this case. Then we just count the stroke for the other 2 words. Okay, so from this we can get his human form, which is 40. And then we get earth form, which is 19. Overall is 46. Still well underneath the 81 count for the whole book. I don't know if I ever met anyone that counted over 81. Even the most complex last name, you have to be really try hard to get your name to go over 81. So now we can answer the question, what about English? Using the logic we have for someone with double word in the last name, we would combine the stroke into a single form. So for English, it's just natural that we'll combine the stroke of each English letter in the name to determine the form. Okay, so here's a cheat sheet for English word. We have different stroke for each individual letter. So let me quickly hide myself so you can see the rest of it. You notice like capital letter and small case letter has different stroke count because you write them differently. So go with the form that you commonly write it as. So for example, if you have like McDonald as your last name, you will have a capital M and a capital D in your name, but you have a lowercase c in between. So you count it that way. Okay, so, but you get the idea, right? Okay, let's do one quick example. You can see where I'm coming from. President Biden, not to get too political, I'll just use his last name, just so you can see how you would calculate the same form for English name. Okay, so from the cheat sheet, we know it's 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, which equals to 11. You know, looks deceiving. I can't actually do math, you know? Then you just kind of do the same for his middle name and first name, then you get the overall form. Now, what about elements? Some version of the 81 stroke smart number method adds up the elements to their interpretation. For example, they will say like 10 is water, 15 is earth, 14 is fire, but the accuracy is questionable. So another method is based on the pronunciation, which is called the sounding of your name. So it goes something like this, like, so the ah sound would be wood element, and the tongue sound would be fire, and the throat sound, if you use the back of your throat, or that would be like earth, and like you grind your teeth when you speak the word would be like metal. You use your lip, it would be water. So my name, Tony, use a bit of tongue and throat to pronounce. Doesn't mean it's fire and earth. I think this method oversimplified and it's a little subjective on how they interpret the elements, which I don't recommend. But some people use it. That's why I go through it just in case. So of all the elements I tested, I found the radical and the meaning of word method turned to be most effective. I remember briefly talking about it in the first video when I talked about names. If you haven't watched it, I apologize ahead of time because the sound didn't come out too good. So I went back and cut out part of the video. Anyway, to avoid making this video way too long, I just want to put a reminder out here. One of the service I provide is picking names, mostly for newborns, some artists. Some people just want to start a new life and have a fresh start for whatever reason, like witness protection program or divorce, want to run away, hide in the jungle, whatever. I pick a name for these guys. Whatever the circumstances, you get a name, whether you're a baby or an adult. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, consider liking the video for some good luck today, subscribe for even better luck, comment down below if you have any feedback or question for me. And also check out my Instagram and Facebook. I post it regularly, especially in our Facebook group. And check out these videos if you haven't seen them before. We dive a little bit more into life analysis perhaps next week. So I'll see you next time.